The Bermuda Triangle, some say it's a gateway to the underworld. Others say it's a wormhole to another dimension.
The Bermuda Triangle mysteriously swallowed over 2,000 ships and 200 aircraft over the centuries. But on December the 4th, 1970, pilot Bruce Gernon survived to tell a story that defies explanation.
And it's an animation of a flight I made in 1970, and it's the most accurate ever made of a thunderstorm vortex tunnel.
While flying from the Bahamas to the Florida coast, Gernon experienced something unprecedented that has never happened to him again, and will never happen to him again in his lifetime, unless he wants to dare flying over the Bermuda Triangle again. What happened? You are about to find out, so stay locked in till the very end because you don't want to miss any details. Come along. Who is Bruce Gernon and why his story matters? Bruce Gernon has long been known as one of the few people who not only encountered the mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle firsthand, but also lived to tell the story in remarkable detail. People have heard many tales about strange disappearances and odd happenings in that region, but what made Gernon's account stand out wasn't just how unusual it sounded, it was who was telling it. Here was a man who, by all standards, knew what he was talking about. By the time he was just 23 years old, Bruce had already logged more than 600 hours of flight time. 600 hours. For someone his age, that was impressive by any measure. It showed not just passion, but skill, discipline, and experience. He wasn't some thrill-seeking amateur misreading a cloud or a compass glitch. He was a trained pilot who had spent countless hours in the air and knew the difference between turbulence and terror, between fog and something far stranger. Could such a person really mistake an ordinary weather phenomenon for something supernatural? That question alone is part of what makes his story so fascinating. According to his own recollection, that December day in 1970 began just like any other. The sky, the sea, and the steady hum of the Beechcraft Bonanza, everything felt familiar. This wasn't a risky adventure or a test flight into unknown territory. Gernon had flown this route many times before, from Andros Island to Miami, a straightforward trip that rarely caused concern. He knew the aircraft like the back of his hand, and he knew the skies along that path just as well. So when something out of the ordinary started to happen, it wasn't because he was lost or unsure of his route. This was a man who knew every cloud, every flicker on the radar, every hum of his engine by heart. He could sense when something wasn't right, and this time, every instinct in him screamed that it wasn't. After all, he had completed this same flight dozens of times without a single hitch. That's exactly what made what came next so deeply unsettling. And if you think you've heard every Bermuda Triangle story before, stay glued till the end. He wasn't alone that day either. Along with him were his father and his father's business partner, two other witnesses who saw the same strange events unfold. It's one thing for a single person to claim an extraordinary experience, but when three people describe the same inexplicable phenomenon at the same time, doesn't that make you pause and wonder? It certainly made many others take notice. Over the years, Gernon's story would attract widespread attention, not just from curious readers or thrill seekers, but from scientists, pilots, and researchers trying to understand what might have happened in those few disorienting moments over the Bermuda Triangle. As Gernon would later describe in his book, Beyond the Bermuda Triangle, the incident wasn't a brief scare, it was something that changed how he looked at flying and, perhaps, even at reality itself. The aircraft seemed to move through a strange cloud or tunnel that defied explanation. Instruments malfunctioned, the horizon vanished, and time itself seemed to behave oddly. And yet, somehow, they emerged safely. It's the kind of story that leaves people with more questions than answers. Was it a natural weather event, some rare atmospheric condition, or something else entirely? Even Gernon, with all his experience, couldn't give a simple answer. But he knew what he saw. Over the years, instead of letting that strange encounter fade into rumor or myth, Gernon turned it into a mission. He began sharing what he had learned, offering advice and insight to other pilots who might one day find themselves navigating those same puzzling skies. His aim wasn't to scare anyone, but to help them be prepared, to understand the unpredictability that sometimes comes with flying through areas like the Bermuda Triangle. He became something of a guide, a bridge between mystery and caution, using his own experience to help others stay safe. Isn't that what anyone would do after surviving something that shook their understanding of the world? Today, Gernon's account continues to spark discussion and debate. Some believe his story holds clues about electromagnetic fields or natural anomalies. Others think it points to phenomena science still hasn't been able to explain. And yet, no matter which side people fall on, one thing remains certain. Bruce Gernon's story is one of the most detailed and credible first-person accounts connected to the Bermuda Triangle. It isn't built on hearsay or imagination, but on the voice of a man who was there, who felt it, who lived through it. His calm, consistent recollection, combined with his deep aviation experience, gives the tale a grounding that few others can claim. As the years have passed, his experience has become more than just a story. It's become a piece of history, a reminder that even in an age of advanced technology and precise instruments, there are still moments that defy logic. And perhaps that's what keeps people drawn to it. Because deep down, who isn't fascinated by mysteries that refuse to be solved? Who doesn't wonder what really lies behind the stories of the Bermuda Triangle, the truth, the science, or maybe something we just don't yet understand? Bruce Gernon never pretended to have it all figured out. No wild theories, no dramatic embellishments. Just one man recounting what he saw, what he felt, and what he still can't explain. Maybe that raw honesty is what makes his story so haunting, because what happened next would challenge everything we think we know about time, space, and reality itself. So stay with me. You'll want to hear every second of this flight. What happened during the flight over the Bermuda Triangle? The strange and almost unbelievable events of December 5th, 1970 began right after Bruce Gernon's plane took off from Andros Island in the Bahamas. Everything seemed normal at first. The sky was clear, the weather calm, until something strange began to unfold. As the small aircraft climbed to about 1,000 feet, Gernon noticed a peculiar-looking cloud ahead of them. It wasn't just any cloud. It seemed to grow larger by the second, not because the plane was moving closer, but as if it were expanding all on its own. He thought it odd, of course, but being an experienced pilot, he decided to proceed carefully. He maneuvered through it with steady hands, unaware that he was about to experience something that would baffle both science and aviation experts for decades to come. As they climbed higher, reaching around 11,500 feet, a massive cloud formation suddenly appeared in their path, blocking any possible route around it. Gernon had no choice but to fly directly through it. The moment they entered, daylight disappeared as if someone had switched off the sun. Darkness completely surrounded the aircraft. But what made this even more unsettling was that it wasn't a normal storm cloud. There was no thunder, no rain, no turbulence. Just darkness. Gernon later said that he soon realized they weren't merely inside a dense patch of cloud, but something that felt like a tunnel. A cylindrical passage that stretched endlessly before them, about a mile wide, forming a perfect tube of vapor. Can you imagine being inside a tunnel made entirely of clouds, with no idea where it begins or ends? He said the walls of this strange formation began to tighten, as if the sky itself was folding in on him, turning into a swirling vortex that seemed alive. What had first looked like a 10-mile-long tunnel suddenly shrank into just 1 mile, and somehow they passed through it in a matter of seconds. Only about 20, he estimated. Inside this eerie tunnel, things only became stranger. Bright white flashes began bursting all around, illuminating the dark space in rhythmic pulses. But these weren't flashes of lightning. No thunder followed, no sound at all, only blinding, silent light. Gernon said the entire interior lit up in a way that made it seem like they were trapped inside a glowing funnel. He could see spiraling lines swirling counterclockwise along the walls, moving with hypnotic precision. The deeper they went, the brighter those flashes became, until it felt like flying inside a giant spinning light bulb. For about 10 seconds, both Gernon and his passenger experienced a feeling of weightlessness, as if gravity had momentarily let go. He later said it was as though the plane wasn't flying anymore, but being carried, like some invisible force had taken control. It made him wonder, was he still piloting the plane or had something else taken over? As if that wasn't enough to shake any pilot's nerves, Gernon's instruments began to fail one after another. The compass started spinning wildly, turning counterclockwise, with no pattern. The electronic panels flickered and displayed nonsense readings, making it impossible to know their true position or heading. Everything mechanical seemed confused, as though the plane had entered a zone where normal physics simply didn't apply. Interestingly, this area lies within what's famously known as the Bermuda Triangle, a place many believe to be one of Earth's 12 mysterious, vile vortices, regions where magnetic forces act in ways that disrupt navigation. Was that what was happening here? Or was it something far beyond human understanding? Gernon tried to contact Miami Air Traffic Control to get his bearings, but what he heard back made his blood run cold. The controllers said they couldn't see any aircraft on their radar anywhere between Miami, Bimini, and Andros Island. As far as their instruments were concerned, Gernon's plane didn't exist. The skies were empty. For a brief, bone-chilling moment, it felt as though history was looping back on itself. He couldn't shake the haunting memory of the infamous Flight 19, 5 Navy bombers swallowed by the Bermuda Triangle in 1945 after their compasses spun wildly and their pilot's final words crackled with panic. Now, his own instruments were betraying him in that same cursed patch of sky. Was he reliving their fate? Was he about to disappear too? What happened next would make even the most skeptical viewer question reality itself. Stay with me, because what unfolded next will leave you speechless. How the plane defied time and space. The most astonishing part of Bruce Gernon's experience, as he later described it, didn't unfold while he was up in the air, but right after the flight ended. What should have been an ordinary routine trip from Andros Island to Miami somehow turned into something that seemed to challenge everything people knew about the laws of physics. He had taken off expecting a typical flight of about an hour and a half, yet when the journey was over, something simply didn't add up. After landing, he was informed by ground control that his aircraft had already arrived in Miami, far earlier than anyone could have expected. The flight that should have lasted 90 minutes had taken only 47 minutes. How could that even be possible? The distance between the 2 points was around 250 miles, and the Beechcraft Bonanza he was flying could only cruise at roughly 180 miles per hour. Under normal circumstances, no amount of favorable wind or perfect flying conditions could account for such an enormous time difference. It was as if the plane had leapt through space, cutting the trip almost in half. When Gernon spoke about it, he admitted how baffled he was, saying he never believed in things like time travel or teleportation. At least, not until that day. He couldn't deny what had happened. The facts were sitting right there in front of him. But it wasn't just the flight duration that was off. The moment he checked the fuel gauge, another strange detail revealed itself. The aircraft hadn't used nearly as much fuel as it should have for a trip that long. Anyone who's ever flown knows fuel consumption is one of the most consistent measures you can rely on. And yet, here it seemed to defy all logic. How could the plane have traveled that far while burning so little fuel? It was as if part of the journey had been skipped entirely, like some invisible hand had lifted the aircraft and placed it down halfway to its destination. Even the people on the ground were left completely bewildered. The dispatcher monitoring the radar screen reportedly couldn't make sense of what he was seeing, or rather, what he wasn't seeing. At first, the plane wasn't visible on the radar at all. Gernon's aircraft had seemingly vanished from the screen, as if it had dissolved into thin air. Then, without any gradual movement across the map or sign of a normal flight path, the plane suddenly appeared directly over Miami airspace. 1 second, there was nothing. The next, there it was, right where it should have ended up. The controller's face, according to Gernon, became contorted with confusion, unable to explain how a plane could disappear and then instantly reappear hundreds of miles away. What kind of force could make that happen? Was it some natural atmospheric anomaly, or had the plane truly passed through something beyond human understanding? The entire experience left everyone grasping for answers. Pilots, scientists, and skeptics all tried to piece together what might have occurred. Some suggested it was a rare meteorological phenomenon, while others ventured into the realm of more extraordinary theories. Among those theories was one that caught Gernon's attention: the possibility of dark energy. Could some mysterious force, the same kind that physicists believe shapes the very fabric of the universe, have bent space and time in that moment? It sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? And yet, when you look closely at the details, the unnaturally shortened flight time, the sudden disappearance from radar, and the baffling fuel readings that no one could fully explain, you start to feel that uneasy chill that maybe, just maybe, something beyond logic happened that day. Every expert has tried to piece it together, but none have managed to give a single, satisfying answer. And that's where things get really fascinating. So don't move an inch, because what comes next dives deep into the heated debate that's kept scientists and skeptics at odds for years. Why scientists and skeptics still can't agree. Decades after Bruce Gernon's strange experience, people were still talking about what really happened that day over the Bermuda Triangle. Scientists from different parts of the world seemed to agree on one thing only: that they couldn't agree on anything at all. Some believed there had to be a scientific explanation, something grounded in nature, while others felt there was far more to it than human logic could ever explain. The debate had stretched for years, and even now, it continued to spark curiosity. After all, how could one man claim to have flown through what he described as a swirling tunnel of mist and somehow arrived hundreds of miles away in just minutes? Was it truly possible? Or had he simply misread nature's tricks? Many scientists took the natural route in their explanations. They said the Bermuda Triangle wasn't cursed or magical, it was just misunderstood. They pointed to geomagnetic anomalies, invisible distortions in Earth's magnetic field that could easily throw off a pilot's compass. If instruments were acting up, couldn't that alone cause a pilot to lose track of direction and time? Some experts even believed methane gas hydrates, frozen beneath the ocean floor, might suddenly burst and release huge gas bubbles. When that happened, the water's density could drop, making ships lose buoyancy and sink without warning. And if such gas reached the air, could it not interfere with aircraft engines, causing sudden failures mid-flight? It all sounded believable enough, the kind of explanation people could wrap their heads around, until, of course, they heard Gernon's story again. Yet not everyone was convinced. In fact, many skeptics rolled their eyes at such stories, calling them exaggerated myths fueled by human imagination. They argued that there was nothing statistically unusual about the Bermuda Triangle at all. Planes and ships disappeared in other parts of the world just as often. It only seemed mysterious because people kept looking for patterns where none existed. The US Coast Guard even made official statements saying there was no evidence of anything supernatural about the triangle. According to them, the so-called mystery could be explained by simple, unfortunate facts: human error, mechanical failure, unpredictable storms, or sudden microbursts that struck without warning. Couldn't it be, they asked, that Gernon had simply encountered a rare but explainable weather phenomenon, something that seemed extraordinary in the confusion of the moment? As the years went by, the story of that day continued to drift between fact and mystery, science and speculation. Some people read Gernon's account and felt certain he had experienced something science had yet to understand. Others were sure that it was all a case of mistaken perception, a man caught in the chaos of clouds, wind, and electrical storms, only to interpret it later through wonder. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.